Back in 2004, I walked into a tiny shop on Pacific Avenue in Santa Cruz in California, and I walked away with this. There is a tiny bit left, but I'm actually not reviewing this, although if you ask me nicely, I will, because it's awesome. Up until yesterday, I haven't set foot back into this place since 2004, and a lot has changed. So you've probably heard of Perfumer's Apprentice, and that's the place we're referring to, a place where perfumers buy their ingredients. I mean, that's what you do at a place called Perfumer's Apprentice. This is going to be the first part of a 4-part series, and we're talking everything Perfumer's Apprentice, how they actually offer all sorts of different things to the community and how their expansion happened. So let's start with the history of this place. A little shop opened back in 2004. It was upstairs on Pacific Avenue, and it was started by a woman named Linda Andrews. So Linda's daughter was reading about a celebrity having a perfume custom made for her, and she wanted the same thing. And Linda looked around and realized there was no real way for a person to actually work with real fragrance ingredients and make themselves a real fragrance. It was always people blending it for you. So Travis McIntosh was the shop's very first customer that same year. And here's the funny part, because I just spoke to him. He wasn't there just to shop for himself. He was on a date, actually. And this person said, let's go make perfume together. Within a month of that date, he became their first employee. 22 years later, he is still there and now the co-CEO. So in 2006, they moved their store online, and it took off enough that Linda decided, let's close this physical storefront. And in 2008, they started selling flavor concentrates, to be exact. And that's when things really accelerated for them as a business. As for who owns this, Linda eventually stepped away from the business. But she didn't sell it off to like a major company. What she did instead was she turned it over to her employees through an ESOP. So the people who work in this facility now, they actually own the place. Eventually, they relocated to Scotts Valley, which is the place that I visited yesterday. And it's a facility that's grown into fragrance sales, flavor concentrates, ingredients, distribution, compounding, shipping, fulfillment, and education to the public. The sheer amount of what's happening in these 2 buildings that they now own, that is the reason this is going to be a 4-part series, because I can't say this to you all in one video. 22 years between my first visit and my second visit. It is the same company. It is a completely different scale. Anyway, stay fabulous, sample first, and look for part 2, because I think this gets pretty cool. This one building holds nearly every raw material a perfumer could ever want, including some that smell like they shouldn't legally be allowed to be sold. This is part 2 of Perfumer's Apprentice series. We're talking about distribution, sourcing, ingredients, and flavor. So before your perfume gets any of its ingredients, or the perfumer gets anything on their bench, somebody actually has to source these materials, build relationships, find rare things, and keep them reliably provided to you. So Perfumer's Apprentice has to be able to promise that the next time you place an order, that same ingredient is going to be available. This is how some of your ingredients actually arrive. Straight from a barrel, straight from the source. From there, somebody in their facility has to physically break down the barrel into smaller working quantities so a perfumer can actually buy that volume. Or maybe you want the whole big drum. Once things get divided, it gets stored. And this is the fishbowl, which is completely temperature controlled, not for cold, just to keep everything in there maintained with integrity. Everything that's more volatile, absolutes, aldehydes, citruses, those get refrigerated in their own section. A friend texted me a few days before I went to visit Perfumer's Apprentice. This is the text. They wanted to know what this smelled like. Here are some of my thoughts. It's meaty, and it has that essence of flesh. It's like body. When enzymes break down meat or proteins, that's kind of what it has the feeling of. Most people would probably not love this, but I think in blended in the right capacity, it would be phenomenal. I asked Travis, I said, hey, can I smell this at full strength? He came out with a bottle that was coated in crystals. He used gloves to open it, afraid to get it on his skin. And out of this bottle, it was pure ammonia. Oh my God. On the flip side of this building, there is pure flavor concentrate. wall to wall, big 1 gallon jugs. There's no sugar, no sweetness, just flavor at its strongest. And when I was speaking to Travis, he told me that some of these are so potent they need to be diluted to 1% in water. 1%. And Thomas put it the best, where he said, in full concentration, if you were to taste this, your mind can't process it. So next time I go there, I need to see my mind not process this. So after all of this is said and done, it has to be packaged and shipped. And there are shipping rooms, multiple shipping rooms. People hand packing orders. They literally had a UPS truck backed into the warehouse that they were loading directly onto. So every day that's what's moving through this whole facility. Anyway, stay fabulous, sample first, and remember, some place has to hold all the ingredients with integrity, and Perfumer's Apprentice does just that. Here you are, watching a video about perfume. The interesting part is you probably never thought about that most perfumers don't build every single bottle they sell by hand. At some point, demand outgrows what you're even capable of doing. And that's a wall everyone wants to hit. There's a point where it's not doable anymore, and you need to outsource it. And that's where part 3 of Perfumer's Apprentice comes into play. Let's talk about compounding. So what is compounding? Compounding in plain terms is where you hand over your exact recipe and somebody else builds it for you at whatever scale you actually want or need. Perfumer's Apprentice does that using either their own materials or something specifically that you've supplied to them. You give them the formula and they rebuild it exactly to your specifications. After they build it, it's all about scale. And when we're talking about scale, the whole reason you're there in the first place, because building this yourself was not something that's fully feasible. So instead of blending drop by drop into things, they're going to run the entire thing in liters at once instead. And since the materials are sitting right there on site, you're not eating separate shipping costs to get ingredients in before you can even start blending. They're just pulling from what they already have in their warehouse. What comes back is usually raw and undiluted, but you can also have them add the alcohol and dilute it and make a finished perfume right there for you. You can even send your own packaging, the bottles you've already picked out, and they'll fill it and compound your fragrance right into it. One thing worth knowing, they're not selling your product for you. That's up to you and your website. Perfumer's Apprentice handles the fulfillment, the compounding it and packing it and getting it ready to ship out to your consumer. So they have a newer service here too. And you can send them the formula a la carte just for IFRA compliance. That means you send them your formula, they check it to see if it meets safety guidelines, and that is the only ask. It's a la carte. If you're a perfumer and you're finding yourself overwhelmed, this is a great thing to know about. Perfumer's Apprentice offers some really great services. That's the business side of the building. But there's a whole other wing that has nothing to do with production. It's built for the people who just want to sit there and smell things. And that's going to be part 4. Anyway, stay fabulous, sample first. And remember, outgrowing your own 2 hands is a good problem to have, as long as you know who to call. Hey, here is a wall of ingredients. Perfumer's Apprentice carries every single ingredient in their repertoire, and they're laid out for you to walk up and smell. This whole big section, synthetics. The other section, naturals. And I was really ready to dig into the synthetic area. In my early 20s, I worked at a store called Entourage, and it was in New York, and I worked there for their opening, and it was owned by a woman named Trigva Harris. And the store is still open today. Highly recommend checking it out. But it was built entirely on integrity. She was a stickler for finding only the best ingredients. That's where I got a lot of my history, a lot of my knowledge, and that's really where I trained my nose in naturals. When you first walk into Perfumer's Apprentice in this building, the first thing you're greeted with is Scent Trunk. That's a brand they're extremely proud of. And it highlights perfumers and ingredients and does so in a way that, please look them up. In this room, they used to run in-person perfumery classes. I'll tell you, this is Perfumer's Apprentice. This is where they host sniffing sessions with people. They might be doing events at some point. And when you see this little tiny room, this is more of a private room. It's good for like a group session, for blending things together, maybe having a meeting and blending, whatever the occasion calls for. It's like the perfect intimate setting. This room to me could be called the tasting room, or the smelling room, or the lab. And here you see this random guy standing there. He just waves. That's his full-time job. But this is the wall of every single product they have. I mean, how dreamy is that? But yeah, you can smell through. What I love is this is synthetics, which I don't know that well. And then this is the wall of naturals, which I love as well. And that's Travis, and he is in charge of everything. And you can pay to get into this room and just spend time in here and smell as much as you want. I walked out with 3 kits. I've combined them here together, but this will give me an opportunity to spend time on my own smelling individual synthetics and naturals and really take the time to explore them. If you want me to do a video series on some of these, I might start mixing them into my repertoire, but I'm so excited for this. I need to do a special shout out to Travis, April, and Tomas. The 3 of you made this visit warm my heart in ways I can't even express my gratitude. I hope you enjoyed this series of my visit to Perfumer's Apprentice, and I'm hoping to not wait another 22 years, was it, to do this again, because this place has so much to offer the fragrance community, and stay fabulous. Sample first. And remember, some places are worth going back to, even if it takes you 2 decades.